I am Oliver Sheriff, and I will be presenting on the unity of the common currency in Europe, where I argue that the European Union is not unified enough for a common currency to be beneficial. Stimulus materials that I connect to this topic are Democracy in America and the Cultural and Evolutionary Trade-off of Virtualistic Synchrony. In Democracy in America, Alexis de Tocqueville states, if each citizen did not learn in proportion as he individually becomes more feeble and consequentially more incapable of preserving his freedom single-handed to combine with his fellow citizens for the purpose of defending it, it's clear that tyranny would unavoidably increase together with equality. In the case of the European Union, this can be seen by many of small European countries that would otherwise individually be weak, combining together to become a much stronger group. And they do this, and one way they do this is through a common currency. Additionally, Michel Gelfand states that synchrony increases people's tendency to make decisions that would maximize economic reward for the group, even at a potential cost to the individual. In the European Union, the countries that adopted the euro as their currency are essentially giving up control over their currency, putting them at a huge economic disadvantage, but they do this so that they can strengthen the group and make it better for the group rather than just worrying about their own economy. One reason I argue against a common currency, however, is that it makes the countries lose their ability to adapt to different challenges in their economy by not making them able to devaluate their currency. Countries devaluate their currency by making it cheaper relative to other countries' currencies, which Alex Cohen and Tyler Tabarrok state can actually increase imports and boost their economy during a recession. However, more productive economies will not want to devaluate their currency because it'll increase demand, but because a lot of their population is employed, it can cause inflation. So different economies do not want to devaluate or do not want to devaluate depending on how they grow or shrink. As you can see in this graph, Germany and Greece have different patterns on how their economy grows or shrinks. And that's just two countries. But the Eurozone is made up of 19 different countries with a wide range in economies. Additionally, the European Central Bank is located in Frankfurt am Main, Germany, which Andrew Beattie, an economist and expert in investing laws, states could create a bias in favor of Germany. And this goes against the main point of having a union by putting Germany at an unfair advantage, even though this currency affects many different countries. However, the euro also has its supporters. For example, the European Union calls it a tangible sign of European identity, meaning that these countries are uniting together, and this currency is a great symbol of that. Additionally, Kristen Archik notes how these European countries originally started trying to unite together to prevent conflict, as after World War II, they didn't want to have more war and more conflict. And although the euro was implemented a lot later, it can be argued that it is another common policy that helps keep peace between these countries. However, the consequences of the euro also can make countries more divided, as not all countries are willing to cooperate with each other. For example, after the debt crisis and during the coronavirus pandemic, Milton Ezrati, another economist, tells us how Germany was not willing to let the European Central Bank give various countries money to help boost their economy, even if they might have needed it. And Germany even threatened to stop cooperating with the European Central Bank, which would be a huge threat to the European Union, given Germany's strong economy and strong influence on the European Union. Additionally, consequences of the European debt crisis can cause even more divide in countries, especially in France, where the National Front, a political party extremely against staying in the European Union, wants to pull France out of the European Union. And this is a poster from the National Front in France, and Gilles Ivaldi claims how ever since the European debt crisis, which was partially as bad as it was due to the euro, the National Front has become more and more popular in France and has taken advantage of the catastrophe. Additionally, France very recently had their first presidential election in 2022, and Marine Le Pen, who was the candidate for the French National Front, was the second most popular candidate, meaning that in the runoffs, she actually has a chance of becoming president of France, which would be dangerous for the unity of the European Union. In conclusion, I say that the European Union members fail to cooperate to the point where the euro would be beneficial, and the euro actually does more harm than it does good, because these countries are not willing to help each other out, so therefore it wouldn't be advantageous to continue using a common currency. Thank you.
Okay, so Oliver, how did some preliminary information that you got inform your research?
So originally, I started with looking up the advantages and disadvantages of the euro, and I noticed a lot of the advantages had to do with like keeping the European Union together and how it's good politically. And although it also had some economic advantages, there are also a lot of economic disadvantages. So I wanted to look more into how the European Union is good for, how the euro is good for the European Union, but also I noticed how the euro actually makes countries less connected to each other.
Okay. So what additional questions came from your research, and why are they important? What did doing this lead you to question, and why are they important?
Before I finished this, or after I finished it?
Merged from your research. So
Okay. So
maybe from the beginning of your research, that's fine too. What are additional questions emerged from your research, and why are these questions important?
So from the beginning of my research, I was wondering, so the euro, I knew that it wasn't good because countries couldn't control their currency. But why does controlling your currency even matter? I didn't know initially why controlling a country's currency mattered, or why it's good to devalue a country's currency, and how this can affect different countries. And then I was going to include it, but it would take too much time. I also asked how the European debt crisis comes into this, which I was going to include, but it took up a lot of time, and I also noticed that it was an example of this slide where I talk about how devaluation is important to currency.
Okay, great. Thank you.